Thank you, Philip Kishard, Bermuda Olympic Association. Minister, thank you for your address. Thank you for your vision in producing this policy, or in the throes of producing this policy. One of the things that you mentioned just a while ago is the importance of stimulating children to sport at an early age. I would have thought that already there's some consideration of having serious discussions with the Minister of Education on this point. Many years ago, when I was in the department, there was efforts being made to work together with education on a number of aspects under another minister. I think it's very, very important that we have discussions with education and to right some of the wrongs that have been happening over the years in terms of the incidence of physical education in schools for children. And I think that the move that I hope you will initiate to get back to a position where physical education and game skills in schools are seen as important in the curriculum is reached.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I can tell you that I have been talking with the Minister of Education on how we can do that. And we've been having some of these discussions within a department as well. And interestingly enough, just to emphasize that point, recently the Premier has been meeting with all of us, just outlining what the specific priorities are that he would like to see this year happen. And one of the things that we've been talking about, and I've been talking with the director about it as well, is, you know, how can we even recognize some of our sporting heroes? As an example, and I use the classic case of like a Clyde Best, who could walk down the streets in London and get mobbed, and people in Bermuda don't even know who he is. So not only do we need to do that recognition, but how do we, you know, maybe utilize those folk to get back into school in one instance, as well as you know, working more closely within the schools. Well, interestingly enough, those were points that the Premier actually pointed out that he wanted to make sure that were accomplished. So we're all on the same page with this. I have already spoken with the director to let's put something in place and let's take the lead and put a plan in place on how this can happen, because I think we have so many resources in Bermuda that we don't utilize. One of the points of even the sports policy is, if we look at a lot of the structured programs that different organizations have, and some have more than the others, let's not duplicate the same things 52 times. Let's utilize you know, our collective expertise and just help everybody move forward. So I'm all with you on that one.
Good morning. Excuse me. I'm Chris Bruff from Junior Golf. Just it's fantastic we have the new policies coming in place from the government level. As far as access to facilities, could you just explain how sort of the government and the boards of trustees of the relative facilities interplay? Because if we have a policy at the top that we should have access, but then we have a board of trustees, for example, the National Sports Center or Port Royal Golf Course, does the policy come all the way through so we do have access?
I think it's, you know, we have to continue to work together, and keep in mind that there are multiple priorities here. And, you know, and let me, there are things that still need to be worked out with the National Sports Center, but this is $2 a month per person. So, I mean, it's all relative, and yes, we have to sort things out. And I think as a government, we're committed to make sure, I know my commitment is about, you know, developing our youth, supporting our athletes. How can we do that, and what do we need to do to make that happen? At the same time, we need to make sure that where we have quality facilities, we maintain them, we take care of them. But, you know, clearly, in my personal opinion is I would like to see, even from a funding perspective, for that to be even focused more on youth development and what we need to do to make that happen in those, and make that ease of use. So, because I actually believe that the more we do that, the more the other end will sort itself out. So, you know, it's, you have to start somewhere.
Good morning. I'm Ellen Kate Horton, My concern, and as an educator and as a sports person, my concern is the talk of marijuana. And I want to know when the education part of it will come, because, you know, we will destroy our young people because they are not educated to understand the dangers to the young mind. Never mind what you older people wish to do, but the young mind is definitely damaged by this kind of thing. And if we see it as okay, then the dangers upon us are even more unreal than we have right now.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, Ms. Horton. I think that statistics show that alcohol consumption was significantly higher during Prohibition than without it, as an example. And, you know, some of the talk around marijuana has not been about legalization of marijuana, it's been about decriminalization of marijuana. And I think that that's a big difference. Certainly, I think education is something that needs to be done and has to be a focal point of that when the discussion ultimately happens. But what we don't want to do is, look, I grew up in Warwick. I grew up, and believe me, I've had my time hanging out down the street and everything. And in hindsight, I was fortunate, but if I look at some of the actions that I did, could have prevented a lot of the things that I've done in my life and since then. And I think that with that why we want to have some of the discussions is that when you look at the criminalization aspect, it's been more of a hindrance to our young people and even our young athletes. I think that the type of discussions and education and work that we need to do as a community doesn't change. But, you know, we want to, and again, there's a big difference between legalization and decriminalization, and that's what the conversation is geared to do. Just have a conversation, have a community discussion, and figure out where we need to go, where we want to go as a community.
Larry Mussenden, Bermuda Football Association. The question that I have is in relation to gaming, and I wanted to know, will we be given a copy of the bill if that's finally tabled in the House, or it may have been tabled in the House yesterday? The reason why I'm asking is because with the National Lottery in England, I believe that there's money that is set aside specifically to go from the lottery straight to like a sports authority or a cultural authority, which then gives money out to the various associations. So throughout England, you're able to see that there are there's been a lot of development of small football fields, clubs have benefited, the arts have benefited directly from the National Lottery. So in Bermuda, my question is, when the bill is passed or the act is passed, is there going to be a provision that really sets aside money directly from the whole gaming profit or fees or whatever it is directly towards sports? Or is the idea that it's going to go straight into the consolidated fund, and then, you know, the current way that the government funds sports bodies, will that continue? Or are we going to sort of think outside the box? And then secondly, really what is your position or the minister's position on something like that? And is there a push for it to be in there?
I support bringing gaming to Bermuda for the intrinsic benefits that it could bring, but as the minister that has responsibility for sports, culture, as well as financial assistance, child and family services, and that social fabric of the country, the concerns that I talked about are real, and you know, that legislation hasn't been drafted yet, but I can assure you that, you know, I've been very vociferous in my discussions with my ministers, and, you know, for things like safeguards, first of all, for those vulnerable, those on assistance, those, you know, with dysfunction, those with problems surrounding that, have safeguards, restrictions, help. Also, we're not looking at any type of national lottery in that sense. However, funding specifically for cultural and sports aspects of it, I've been really pushing hard to make sure that we can ring fence certain percentages of that to benefit the community, because if we can actually do something like this right, in an ideal world, you get the inward investment, you get to produce jobs, and you get funds that not only can help to offset some of the national debt in the consolidated fund, but start to give us more access to even do more things to, because I believe that sports and culture and if we can really do these things well as a country, which historically we haven't done, it could be extraordinarily beneficial for all of us. And if you look at all the talent we produce sports-wise and even culturally, I mean, could you just imagine where we can go to Bermuda if we really as a country took these things on consistently and not just in pockets 1 or 2 times, a year. I think it could be a phenomenal thing for us. So yes, I am pushing for that extraordinarily hard.
Larry Musson from Bermuda Football Association again. So I would like to suggest, based on your answers, Minister, that maybe the sports bodies are canvassed on that, because I don't know what the position is of everybody. In fact, at the Bermuda Football Association semi-AGM just a few weeks ago, we did discuss it, and we said that, well, we would canvass the responsible ministers for whatever the position is, and we as an association have not come up with a position yet, because somebody, the media, might ask us what we think about it and about the questions that we ask. So I'm only asking, perhaps the ministry could think about asking all of the bodies, what do we think about it, so that at least we have a view, or at least a comment or contribution.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I see my PS writing that down, which that's the action item there. So yeah, I think that would be good, because certainly off the top of my head, I'm thinking we could just outline a couple of scenarios of how this can work, and let's have that unified front to put forward. I would take that on.
Sheree from Bermuda National Association. Morning, Mr. Minister. I was wondering if you can speak to the upcoming budget with reference to grants. What it is that we are to expect from this year's budget. Is there any surprises for us planning ahead? If we can have some idea of whether or not the equitable grants have been looked at already, or with reference to grants being distributed amongst the NSGBs with regards to the memberships and that sort of thing that was spoken about at the sports policy. If you could speak to that for us, please.
Across the board, I think the upcoming budget will reflect a necessity to start to bring some things back under control, getting in that direction, which means that there's going to be pressure or adjustments across the board. I can say, though, that this ministry, with the assistance programs, with sports, with culture, represents the social fabric of this country. And I have been a very strong advocate for what that looks like. And although, when you look at, and I have to call out that the trends of financial assistance continuing to go up, I can say that when you look at this ministry across the board, we have not, I wouldn't anticipate that we will see a decrease in our overall ministry-wide support levels. However, our goal is to be able to continue to fund, cultural and sports events as much as possible, and we've made every effort to do that. So, there will be some drawbacks in some cases, but that's been as absolutely minimal as possible, and that's been our intention, right? So that's as best I could answer that right now without getting myself in trouble.